All right, so good evening. Thanks to those of you who are joining live and those who are watching the recording. I appreciate it. Welcome to our workshop on holding government accountable. My name is Dr. Josh Franco, Assistant Professor of Political Science at Cuyamaca College. Welcome. Appreciate you guys listening in. So recall that this workshop series is focused on how individuals inside and outside of government hold it accountable to the Constitution, federal and state laws and regulations. This is a 16 series workshop for spring of 2022, and we meet every Wednesday from 7:30 to 8. For the past 2 weeks, we discussed student power, and last week we talked about local government. Today we'll talk about a semester in Sacramento or DC. So let's go ahead and jump right to it. So week 3, a semester in Sacramento or Washington, D.C. Our learning objectives for this unit are the following. First is to identify a California State University or a University of California program that allows you to live and learn in the state capital. And the second objective is to identify a California State University or a University of California program that allows you to live and learn in Washington, D.C. So semester in Sacramento, there's 2 programs that you should be familiar with. The first one is the UC Center Sacramento program. Their goal is to educate California's future leaders in the craft of politics and policymaking while making the expertise of the faculty of the nation's leading university available to decision makers in the legislative and executive branches of government. We'll go ahead and take a look at the UC Center Sacramento website so you can get a look at how this is presented. So here you'll see the About Us, undergraduate students, graduate students, public policy, and their different workshop and speaker series, any events that they have upcoming, and news available to them. So what's really exciting about this program is that it's open to all UC students. So whether you're at San Diego, Riverside, Merced, or Santa Cruz, you're welcome to apply through your campus's Ucdc program. And if you're admitted to go, UC Center Sacramento program, then you're admitted to go to the UC Center Sacramento building in the state capitol. The second program is the Csu Sacramento Semester. So this was established in 1976 at Cal State Sacramento, or Sac State, and it's an active learning experience. So what this tries to do is to bring students from the CSU system to the state capitol. So let's go ahead and open up their webpage. And here we'll see it there. So, for example, what to expect in spring of 2022, which is right, we're in the middle of it. And it looks like they're going to be having in person, right? Given the pandemic and everything that's been going on, they're finally going to have these kinds of experience with internships being both fully in person or hybrid. And they have some information about how to apply for it. In this case, the deadline was the first week of November. So keep in mind that both the UC Center Sacramento program and the CSU Sacramento program both have deadlines in advance of applying. So either at the campus level or at the system level, and that you should keep an eye out for those deadlines if you're really interested in applying for it. Now, personally, I was in the UC Sacramento program in between my spring semester at UC Merced and the summer after that spring. So I had participated in commencement in May of 2007, and then I went to the UC Center Sacramento program in the summer of 2007. And I'll have a couple more slides about that. The second set of programs are a semester in Washington, D.C. So the first one is the Ucdc Program. Go ahead and open up their webpage here. And here's their website and a couple of ways to navigate it. So who they are, the spring quarter, academics, for example, different courses and enrollment, internships, how to find them or where people are placed, events at the center, the building, IT support, alumni, and residential life. So one thing unique about the UC Center in Washington, D.C. is that they have the University of California owns a building and it's like, I think 10 or 12 stories tall. And they have like classroom space, they have meeting spaces, they have event space. And then the rest of it's dormitories where students from the UC who are in this program will live in it. And actually there's other universities that will rent out space from the UC system for their students as well. I'm gonna go ahead and open up their Who We Are page. And I'll go ahead and have this read to us by our trusty speaker. And I'll change the voice option. I've been having to mix it up just a little bit. So go here with this person. Okay.
University of California extends its mission of service, teaching and research to the nation's capital. The UC Washington Center, UCDC, is a multi-campus residential, instructional, and research center that provides students and faculty from the University of California with opportunities to study, research, work, and live within Washington's rich cultural, political, and international heritage. The program is housed in an 11-story building in a lively neighborhood a short walk from the White House with room for more than 270 students.
So say, for example, you're at a community college and then you transfer into one of the UC campuses. And I'll go ahead and highlight my alma mater, UC Merced. Go Bobcats. Go Bobcats. And let's go ahead and click on their web page. So this is UC Merced's Washington program. And you can learn more about the program, what the deadlines are, and how to apply and things of that nature. So this is just a great opportunity for those students who go from a community college to the UC system to have the opportunity to work and live and learn in Washington, D.C. Now, the second program I'd like to point out is the Panetta Institute for Public Policy. And go ahead and open up this webpage. So the Panetta Institute hosts a Congressional Internship Program. And let me go ahead and I'll have this read to us.
Congressional Internship Program. Each fall, the Panetta Institute hosts students for its Congressional Internship Program beginning in mid-August through mid-November. Now in its 22nd year, the semester-long public service experience was created by Secretary and Mrs. Panetta and is sponsored by the Panetta Institute. Today, it is considered one of the finest congressional intern programs in the nation. While last year's class was held remotely due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this year's class will once more take place in person at the Panetta Institute. Following the initial 2 weeks of classes, 26 students will travel to Washington, D.C. on Saturday, August 21st. On the East Coast, they will serve 11 weeks as interns in the United States House of Representatives, in the offices of both Republican and Democratic members. Students are nominated by university presidents from the California State University campuses, the largest state university system in the country, along with Dominican University of California, St. Mary's College of California, and Santa Clara University. This year, thanks to a special grant to some from the Corrett Foundation, the Monterey Bay campus is able to send 2 students to serve as interns.
So there you have a general overview of the Congressional Internship Program. I was made aware of this because when I worked in Congress for Congressman John Garamendi, we had a student who was a Panetta fellow, or they just call themselves Panettas, in our office. And her name's Melissa Brunel, shout out. Or now Melissa Castro, excuse me. She married another Panetta, Pablo. And just a wonderful experience that she shared with us about being in the program, being able to interact with former Secretary, Chief of Staff, Congress member Leon Panetta and his wife. And the camaraderie and the fellowship that was formed there was just wonderful for them. So for those students who go to community college and then transfer to CSU system, know that this is an opportunity for you to live, work, and learn. All right, I'm back. I had a slight internet disruption, but let me go back and share my screen. So I was in the UC Center Sacramento program. I loved it. It was a great experience. And it was essentially a bridge from like being a full-time student to being a full-time staff member in the state capitol. And I'll go ahead and have this little bit read to us because it's my interview. Actually, I'll have the whole thing read to us because it's not too long.
Josh,
let me change the voice here again.
Franco has a passion to teach, and he prepared for that career by experiencing firsthand the nuts and bolts of his subject matter, politics, and the making of public policy. The path to that goal began in spring 2007 when he met then UC Center Director Gary Dimsky during a campus reception at UC Merced. Josh was about to graduate, but Dimsky convinced him to enroll in the center's summer program for one final burst as an undergrad. It proved to be a fortuitous decision. The center offered me a bridge from being a student to being a professional, Josh said. Although I was technically a student, the classes were designed to make you feel like a professional. You had to do meaningful research, write policy papers, and learn the personal skills you need to succeed in a professional career. Josh's internship provided that bridge, and more. He landed a spot in the Capitol office of then Lieutenant Governor John Garamendi, where he immediately felt part of staff, and where he was trusted with responsibilities beyond those of a mere student. I had only been there a few weeks, he recalled, when I was assigned to staff Garamendi on the road. Garamendi also allowed Josh to focus his research on the lieutenant governor's position as a UC regent and higher education. I learned a lot by watching Garamendi advocate policies to help students and others who needed help. He also had a chance to watch Garamendi build and maintain his network of experts and contacts, and to see how he used that network to further his policy goals. The connection to Garamendi continued long after Josh finished his term at UCCS and graduated from Merced. In fact, he hadn't even finished his internship when the lieutenant governor hired him as a policy analyst. Josh remained in that position from 2007 to 2009 when he left the Capitol to work on Garamendi's successful campaign for Congress. He then followed Garamendi to Washington, where he functioned as a senior legislative resources, particularly water policy. In 2012, Josh returned to California as Garamendi's policy advisor. By the end of the year, he left Garamendi's staff to enter the doctorate program at UC Merced, completing his PhD in June 2018. Working for Garamendi allowed me to see California, the nation's capital, and to learn the inner workings of state and federal politics and public service, he said. And that experience is vital to my role as a teacher. Textbooks and lectures only teach you so much, and there were things I never knew while growing up in Southern California, and even in classes UC Merced. But I went through it, and now I can teach others how it all works, from the perspective of someone who has been there on the inside.
Every time I hear the story, right, or at least that article, it just takes me back to all the memories I have. And this is a picture of me and Professor Gary Dembski at the end of the program reception. And he said some kind words, and really appreciated him offering me the opportunity to be a representative of UC Merced in the program. This is a picture of me and the lieutenant governor the day I was sworn in. So anyone who works for an elected official in California, you have to take an oath of office. And so this happened on September 11th, 2007. And this was like an important moment because obviously I was a young adult when September 11th happened. And to have this swearing in happen on that same day, 6 years later, was, in my mind, pretty impactful, because part of the reason I was additionally inspired to go into public service was seeing that event happen, that terrorist attack, and to be like, I want to do my part. And my part was, getting involved and engaged in public policy. In my role as a policy analyst to the lieutenant governor, I helped organize what was called Students for California's Future. This was a coalition of the State Senate, or Student Senate for California Community Colleges, the California State Student Association, and the UC Student Association. There's a lot of stories I'd love to tell about that. So whenever I get a chance, I would do it. One of the major things that this coalition did was put together not just a protest rally march in Sacramento, but we had what we call a distributed model of action across the state, from Humboldt and Arcata down to San Diego here. We got students and organized them, and all made the concerted effort to demonstrate to the public and to elected officials that the budget cuts to higher education at the time, this was in 2007, 2008, 2009, because of the Great Recession, were so devastating that we needed to take action on it. So here a picture on the left of me giving instructions to folks about how the rally or the march was going to go from Rayleigh Field in West Sacramento across the Yellow Bridge to the state capitol. And this is Sonia Logman on the right, who's now a well-respected policy professional. And here on the right was the front page of the San Francisco Chronicle, titled "Students Protest Proposed Budget Cuts to Higher Education." And then from there we had this was like in April of 2008. And then the devastating story that I want to point out is by early 2009, then Governor Schwarzenegger sliced my boss's budget. His budget at the time was like almost $3 million. And the governor cut it down to just $1 million. And when that happened, I was devastated, because having been the lowest ranking staff member, essentially, or the newest ranking staff member in that office, I was like, when you take a cut of that depth, like, I'm probably not going to get to keep my job. So I asked the lieutenant governor, I said, hey, you got to move me over to your campaign. At the time, he was still running for governor. Move me over to your campaign and let me do the work over there. And that's what ended up happening in March of that year. And then by a month later, in April 2009, the congressman or the lieutenant governor decided to run for Congress because the seat had opened up. But this was a kind of formative moment in my experience because, when one door closes, so I was wrapping up saying that the opportunity to work for Lieutenant Governor John Garamendi, then Congressman Garamendi, for 5 years was just very eye-opening. And I go back to the main part of this presentation for week 3 of like a semester in Sacramento or Washington, D.C. It was because of that semester in Sacramento that everything else happened. So I want you to know about it as a student and to know that this is something that you should participate in. And you don't have to be just a political science major. Any major should consider, because once you know and have a feeling for how Sacramento works, for how the nation's capital works, you just have this broader perspective when it comes to policy making, regulatory actions, and just that the world's more complicated than what you might see on a talking head on some cable news network. The world is far more complicated than anyone will make it, and this is a way of seeing it kind of firsthand for yourself. So with that, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch and engage, and have a great night. Take care.